290 of the International Convention for Suppression of Acts of Nuclear Terrorism on April 2005. So April 2005 is a very recent thing which was passed by the General Assembly, which they have an act against nuclear terrorism, that is not to allow terrorists access the nuclear capabilities. So how do you prevent that? That was the resolution 290. And there was also an ad hoc committee on terrorism in 1996, which dealt with, ad hoc committee is like terrorism, some incident happens and they can be quickly contacted in that regard. So let's see the problem of Security Council now. So we have discussed General Assembly, now I'll talk about the Security Council and the problem of definition. Problem definition is what is exactly terrorism. Is it state-based or is it liberation struggle? What is it? Okay, on your right side you can see the photograph of Folke Bernadotte. He was a UN mediator of Palestine in 1948. So I would like to tell you, before that he was a soldier for the Second World War, and then because of his capabilities he was made the UN mediator to Palestine in 1948. What happened was, the first mention of terrorism at UN was in 1948, with assassination of the UN mediator to Palestine after the 1948 Arab-Israeli war. So during 1948, after the Arab-Israeli war, the mediator from the UN, Mr. Folke, was sent to Palestine to monitor the process, to see what's going on in Palestine. And what he saw was the deplorable condition of the Palestinian people being killed in their own country, or in their homeland. So after he saw that, he wanted to report it back to the United Nations. During that time, there was this group called Lehi, which is also called a Stern Gang, because the leader of the group was a Jewish person and his name was Yasmin Stern. So because his last name was Stern, so it's also called Stern Gang. It was a Zionist group described as a criminal group of terrorists by the United Nations in 1948. So I'd like you to focus on this and remember this, that United Nations called it a criminal terrorist group, Lehi, because the leader of the group, Stern, was the prime suspect who assassinated the UN mediator in Palestine in 1948. But now as we see the events change and events fall, what happened to gangs like Stern gangs and Lehi? What happened to them? And all the Zionist groups. So to you I'd like to explain Zionist group. Zion is the imagination of an Israeli nation by the Israeli people. Zion is what they imagine is our Israeli nation. So that is the creation of Israel. Israel is the vision of their country of only Israeli people, which is called Zion. So in this regard, let's look at the Lehi and what it is and how during the course of time, how it changed.
A direct challenge to the United Nations and its powers of war prevention comes from Palestine. The definition of legal and illegal forces becomes daily more obscure. Haganah, the force first legally raised for the defense of Jewish settlements, appears to function hand in glove with Irgun Sma Leumi, the outlawed terrorist army. Full-scale training is underway in a score of camps throughout the country. There is no shortage of arms nor ammunition, though under the British mandate, possession of arms calls for the death penalty. The cameraman taking these pictures was led blindfold to the training ground. A few of the men avoided being photographed, only the girls made a half-hearted attempt at concealment of their features. Such is the attitude towards the waning power of Britain's mandate. An active battleground is in the no-man's land between the towns of Tel Aviv and Jaffa. Here the mock training goes a stage further. Sniping affrays are of daily occurrence.
Okay, so now we just saw that how parts of United Nations and how they actually helped train some of the people, but at the end, with the assassination of Folke, they were described as a criminal group of terrorists. But what happens is in 1990, the Israeli government institutionalizes the Lehi ribbon and gives the military honor for the establishment of Israel. So during the course of time, in a period of 40 years of establishment of the Israeli nation, what happens Israel is that Israel government says it's a medal of honor for the people of courage, Lehi ribbon. So the name is called Lehi ribbon from the Lehi group. And now it's an honor establishment for Israel. So because Lehi put in efforts to create the country of Israel, it's now has been honorified. So do you see the definition problem is of terrorism? First, it was called a criminal group by the UN, and now it's been given an honorable position by Israeli government. So you see how it's difficult to describe what is exactly terrorism. Is it a liberation struggle, or is it what? So let's see. Now the Security Council realized that this is a problem of definition and stuff. So they came up with a different approach. Now the different approach is to let's go case by case. So in contrast to the General Assembly, the Security Councils follow the case-by-case approach. That is, it's going to deal with cases separately. So, the division of labor was amongst them. That is, the General Assembly, the Security Council said, okay, let's deal with terrorism case by case, but they divided labor amongst them. So that, yeah, okay. And the end of Cold War triggered the Security Council's anti-terrorism activities. So the real anti-terrorism activities began after the end of Cold War. So after the end of Cold War, we see that okay, there is some improvement. But before that, it was a very hazy situation. So now the chief strategy of the Security Council was to impose severe sanctions against the nations which support, aid, or fund terrorist organizations or terrorist activities. So the different approach, which is written in the purple letter over there, this approach is the last one. Impose severe sanctions. So as long as you impose severe sanctions, they will be pressurized not to support any terrorist activities. So this was the approach that the Security Council took up. So let's see case by case. So let's see the case of Libya now. Libya is one of it's one of the most interesting cases that I came across. So yeah, so this is what happened. On December 21st, 1988, Pan American Flight 103, which was flying from London Heathrow Airport and going to New York, was blasted by a bomb in the mid-air, and the flight blasted in the mid-air and killed about 248 people. And then the flight came down and hit the city of Lockerbie, which is in Scotland, southern Scotland. So the whole aircraft came down on the city of Lockerbie and killed 19 people there, or more people. So in total, 270 people, out of which 190 were American nationals, were killed by this incident. Now this incident is called the Pan Am Lockerbie bombing, and in this we see that on January 31st, 2001, Abdel Basset Ali Muhammad Meghari, who was a Libyan national, was convicted for his involvement and sentenced to life. Now, in this, there are many small detailed informations. For example, Mr. Meghari was a Libyan intelligence official. He was not a college boy who wanted to kill people. He was an intelligence official from the Libyan government, and he was also working for the air traffic control of the Libyan National Airlines. So this person was implicated on 31st January 2001 for the killing of Pan Am, 270 people in the Pan Am aircraft case. But how did things take a total 180-degree turn? Let's look at the video and we'll know more.
The Scottish government has released Lockerbie bomber Abdel Basset